Listen to the sweet sounds of the After Movie Diner. Support us at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Or I'll punch you in the teats. Rate and review us on iTunes, Earthling. And now, here's your host, Jon Cross.
That's right, I am Jon Cross, and not just a product of your warped and twisted imaginations. So, this week, very excitingly, we received a voicemail. That's right, you can send voicemails to the After Movie Diner by calling 347-669-0053. That's 347-669-0053, or by going over to speakpipe.com/After Movie Diner. That's speakpipe, PIPE.com/After Movie Diner. Why not leave us a voicemail like this chap did? However, this chap did not leave his name or his telephone number or his email address or any of those things. So I have no way of responding to the voicemail other than on the show. So when you hear the voicemail, you'll realize why I need some form of contact information to get back to him. However, I thought this would be a good forum to play the voicemail. I'll respond to it, and then if he's interested, he can email us at aftermoviediner@gmail.com or hello@aftermoviediner.com, or go on to the website and fill out one of our contact forms on the website. So many ways to contact the diner, and yet so few people ever did. Well, this gentleman did, and here is his voicemail.
Hey, Jon Cross. I was wondering, how much Patreon money would it cost me to talk about the 1987 classic Hiding Out with You? Been a long-time listener, and I gotta say, I would love your take on that. Hell, I don't even need to really be involved with it. I mean, you and somebody else could talk about it, but it's like one of those 80s movies no one ever talks about, and it drives me crazy. And my wife is tired of me talking about how great that movie is. So even if you hate it or dislike, or like it, I mean, there's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot going on. So just throw that out there. Bye.
Well, thank you ever so much, whoever you are, for sending us that voicemail. I love movie recommendations, so that's fantastic. I've actually never seen Hiding Out, but would love to see it and form my own opinions and discuss the film if it seems like it's something that could be discussed. Certainly if it's going to save a marriage where the wife is frustrated with the lack of discussion about Hiding Out on podcasts, then I am all for that. If my Hiding Out podcast could in some way alleviate the pressure and tension about the lack of podcasts discussing this film, then that is a public service I would happily provide. All joking aside, and that was all joking, please do get in contact with us via email at hello@aftermoviediner.com or aftermoviediner@gmail.com to discuss this further. I'm going to try and track down a copy of 1987's Hiding Out and give it a look, and then we'll go from there. So that was cool. That was fantastic. Thanks so much for sending the voicemail in. Like I said, please, I do encourage all listeners to contact the After Movie Diner and give us some feedback, whether it's via email, whether it's via telephone at 347-669-0053, whether it's via speakpipe.com/After Movie Diner, or whether it's just rating and reviewing the podcast on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever podcasts are found. I embrace all feedback, positive or negative, so please do send us some in. I love getting feedback like this voicemail. So hopefully we can figure something out with 1987's Hiding Out. Let's just try and track down the film first and go from there. And now, our guest this week was born in the fires of Jeff's unusual basement of stuffed geese feet in New Pits, Idaho, to a blind one-legged Jaws harp player named Gregory and Leona Chipson Dip, a woman of no distinguishable scars or taste in hairnets, but who played a mean game of gin rummy, hop the twig, and Fatima Gubbins, an old Bolivian game that requires the owner of the most pungent onion to go and insult a local clergy member. At the age of 5, my guest this episode moved to Goats Balls, Pennsylvania, to find a mate, learn how to crochet, and to seek his fortune. Sadly, he was turned away at the town gates for being only 5 and unable to spell the word crevice properly. Disillusioned at such an early age, he forged west, taught himself to eat the food they sell under the counter at barber shops in Kentucky, mostly dried horse meats and deep-fried Dutch cheeses, and became adept at impersonating people with speech impediments. This got him noticed by Lenny the Twig, an entrepreneur and renowned puncher of ducks, who promptly made him join a traveling Renaissance clog appreciation group who were often deployed in overseas conflicts to confuse and scare the enemy into laying down their guns and taking up water polo instead. After many years living off the fat of the land, a weird dish they make in Junkin's Pubic Mound, Mississippi, out of old dog's lips and ground camel knees, my guest moved to Connecticut to set up his own dress-as-a-marmot swimming baths and grill, where he gained in notoriety for violently coughing on Mark Wahlberg's limo waxer during a game of strip parcheesi. This set a chain of events in motion, a lot of them involving heaps of pudding and a weapon made out of the bones of extras from old 70s NBC sitcoms called The Flagrant Wasp, that got him run out of town while he was dressed as Marsha Brady. He retired to Florida, where he raises some non-racist gecko lizards and often wears 2 hats, which he knitted himself out of the discarded foreskins he finds out the back of a bring-your-own-bottle synagogue and bris parlor in Orlando. You may all know him like an estranged aunt who once force-fed you radishes and locked you in a cupboard for drinking all her gin, but I call him Papa Porne. It's the one, the only, Moe Porne.
I'm going to die immediately. Whoa. Yeah, you're going to have to cut that one out.
And while he slowly dies, I'm not cutting that out, let's just leave it in. And while he slowly dies of what sounds like possibly dysentery, possibly just catarrh, who knows? That's an old Python joke I just stole, like almost verbatim. Anyway, as he slowly dies, the other reason why this is a very, very special episode is that we are covering 1997's Driftwood. And the only reason that's special, and believe me, it's not the content of the film. The only reason that it's special is this is possibly outside of like a very, very early film that Spader might have done that maybe isn't available. This is probably, of all his later works, the rarest and hardest to get hold of if you are in the United States. This is an exceptionally rare, weird little film made in Ireland, starring Spader and the French actress Anne Brochet. And so that's why it's special. It was a difficult one to come by. I had to call on my
a difficult one to watch.
it's a difficult one to watch. I had to call upon my internet minions to dig this one out for me. Because I wasn't going to pay $45 to some licensed bandit on Amazon who was going to flog me some German knockoff DVD for that amount of money. So I'm sorry about that. If the producers of the film want to come after me for watching a pirated copy, I will happily send them the $2 that this film is barely worth. Oh, it's Sleazy Spader Springtime. Welcome to the show. Oh, it's a Sleazy Spader Springtime. I want you all to know that if you please, there's James Spader Sleaze and it's got nowhere else to go. So loosen all your blouses, give your nose a damn good blow, 'cause now we're coming clean, oh yeah. It's 2019, Sleazy Spader Springtime Show. Oh yeah, it is 2019's Sleazy Spader Springtime Show. So, Mo, had you even heard of this film before I sent it to you?
You know, it's funny. I was talking to somebody, and I told them I had to go because I had to watch this movie before recording tonight.
Before the world ends.
Yeah, before the world ends. And they said, "Oh, what's the movie called?" I said, "Oh, it's called Driftwood." And they sent me a link on IMDb to a completely different movie called Driftwood. And I'm like, no, not that one.
Not that
Not
one.
that
I think
one.
there's like 3 or 4 movies called Driftwood. Yeah. This
Yeah,
one is 1997's Driftwood, directed by Ronan O'Leary. So I don't know if you can tell, but he's Irish. and it's written by Richard M. Waring, or it's based on his novel, I guess, as well. And it stars, as I said, James Spader and Anne Brochet, and then in subsidiary roles, Barry McGovern and Anna Massey. So there you go. That's exciting. Moe, do you want to tell people kind of vaguely what it's about, or shall I run down the plot?
No, I'll do it, I guess. Okay. All right. So you got this French sculptor. Her name is Sarah. She is walking along the beach, looking for pieces of driftwood that she can use for her quote unquote art. And happens upon the ultimate piece of driftwood,
James Spader.
James Spader. She brings him back to her house, heals him, so to speak. I mean, he's injured basically the entire fucking movie, but, brings him back to the house and then promptly falls in love with him and determines that he should never, ever leave because she loves him and they should be together forever.
Which may have something to do with the fact that the moment she gets him home, because he's injured, she cuts off all of his clothes. Yeah. And after seeing his weirdly ginger pubes, she's probably like, I'm going to keep this man chained up, and he is never getting away from me because, my goodness, it may be small, pink, and freckled, but that is one penis that I want to keep around. We don't.
The funny thing is that the plot of the movie is basically Misery, except she's not smart enough to tie him to the bed.
Yeah, it's basically Misery. It's yet another film, and it's quite funny because I've been looking up Spader films on Letterboxd recently, and someone has actually made a list of films in which James Spader's penis either plays a pivotal plot role or the entire film hinges on it. And this is, and I suggested two other films that he should potentially add to it. One being Driftwood, the other one being, and I'm going to have to find it. I'm going to forget it, but Starcrossed. The other one being Starcrossed, where basically an alien comes to Earth and Spader's like, so I have to have sex with you, right? Because you're an alien. You're an alien on Earth, and you've come to discover the true meaning of Spader. And Driftwood is another one that essentially hinges on one woman's insane desire to keep and control Spader's peen. So that's essentially what the film is about. It has... it's funny. The only other thing I could find online about this film was apart from sort of IMDb comments and Letterboxd comments, was a Variety review, which makes the actual very sort of salient point that they say that while the leads don't have much chemistry and they're not given much to work with in terms of script or anything like that, it says that a lot of the supports in the movie play it like it's some sort of grand guignol horror flick, especially McGovern, who plays like this crazy over-the-top leering grocery supplier, and Anna Massey, who plays the ghost of the mother. All that aspect is very sort of as if it's some sort of grand drama, horror, thriller, movie. But nothing else in the film is like that at all. It's sort of a little weird. What's also weird is the other sort of mad theme about the film is, when does it take place? Because it essentially looks contemporary. There's nothing about what she wears or what he wears that wouldn't fit sort of into the 90s or into the end of the 80s. However, everyone else in the film seems to be dressing like it's the 1930s. Now, it could just be that the entirety of Ireland still dresses like it's the 1930s. I don't know. But like when the policemen show up at the end, I'm like, where do these policemen come from? A Dickens novel? Like they were dressed as if it was the turn of the century. So I mean, again, what I know about Irish policemen can be is this movie and then the Brendan Gleeson film The Guard.
The Guard.
So outside of that, I don't know anything else about Irish policemen. But I know that in The Guard they don't dress like they're still fighting the famine. So I don't quite know when this is set. Maybe it's set in a sort of also the guy's delivery truck is sort of old and rusty, right? It's kind of 40s, 50s looking.
And it doesn't help that she sort of like makes everything because she's a sculptor.
And she lives in a cabin that's been around since, probably 300 or 400 years.
And I love the fact that she tries to convince him that she lives on an island when she clearly doesn't live on an island.
Right. Although all best efforts to her, really, for doing that. But it seems more complicated than it's worth as the movie goes on. So maybe it's set in the 40s. Like maybe the idea is... Because when she goes to get the radio from the... now I'm thinking about it all. When she goes to get the radio, it's an old, like, 40s transistor radio style thing. So maybe it's set sort of just slightly post-war, because he does make some comment about possibly being a war hero. So maybe it's set end of the 40s, early 50s, maybe. And... maybe that's how they get away with not having kind of contemporary technology. I don't know. But, and then two people rock up on like a motorbike and sidecar. Now I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of hints that it's not set in the 90s. So I'm going to go with it being set somewhere near the end of the 40s. Not that adds any... any layer or intrigue or interest about this movie at all.
The After Movie Diner with Jon Cross will return right after this.
On Van Dam Street in the pouring rain, they watched his window with eyes of flame. Inside, time was getting short. Cigarettes were being smoked to extinction. He violently wished not to have to go to the merry gentleman in the street below. Deep inside, he knew nobody chooses the hour of their damnation. He looked at his dog asleep on the bed and softly scratched its dreaming head. Deep inside, it was shouting down the moon in a war of attrition. But it stirred as he quietly dragged his shadow down the stairs that sagged. Inside, his dog put its face to the window and bared teeth that shone like salvation. The tumbling glass flickered eyes of flame on Van Dam Street in the pouring rain.
Are You Hurtling Towards God Knows What? A brand new book of poetry by J.E.A. Wallace, available now on Amazon. And we've made it easy for you. You can click through the banner link on aftermoviediner.com.
You're listening to the After Movie Diner with your host, Jon Cross.
The main problem this movie has is it sets up Spader. He's injured on the beach. He has convenient amnesia when he's woken up. Because she's the only woman he can see, Spader obviously has to have sex with her. That's just Spader's MO.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't matter where or when he is. I presume he just goes through life and is like, well, here's a warm body. Let's move on. Not that she's fighting him either. She's all for it as well. So she's certainly culpable. But like he doesn't go, I might be married or anything. He does say the sentence at some point during the movie, but it does not stop him rutting around with the French lady. And fair play to him for that. But beyond that, there's no effort to explain where he's from. There's no effort.
Yeah, they don't even give him at no point in the movie does he have a name.
No, he doesn't have a name. They don't say where he's from.
It didn't even dawn on me until the end of the movie so the movie kind of comes full circle, you know. It starts off with him
he rocks up on an island with two women, and he's like, all right. I presume the sequel is just endless threesomes. That's what I presume.
So the movie starts off with him washed up on the beach, and then he manages to get away at the end, and ends up crashing and washes up on another beach.
Right.
And it's like, what the fuck? So it kind of dawned on me at the end there, like as he washed up on that second beach, injured, of course.
Yeah.
Having miraculously managed to hurt his head in the exact same place he had hurt it before.
Yeah. He's helped me, and then they both look at each other, and they're being like, "We will help you, sir." Let's take you back to Castle Anthrax, where there will promptly be a spanking.
Spanking, yeah, exactly.
We are but 13 girls between 16 and 24.
Oh man! It was Newt's turn to light the grill-shaped beacon.
Yeah,
so,
right. Right. Well, she lit the fire that made him realize there were people on the island in the first place.
Right.
But no, the frustrating thing about the film is that the only driving narrative, because they don't bother to solve the mystery of who he is, they don't really, outside of him saying, look, I'll go find help, I'll go figure some stuff out, and then I'll come back for you. They don't really have a lot of conflict between the two of them. I mean, it certainly gets to a point where Spader has to say, look, I don't love you. This wasn't any, like, how can you possibly love me kind of thing. This is ridiculous. I've got to get off this island. Right. That's about the maximum level of conflict. He never really gets super intrigued or nosy about what's going on the farm where they are, or on the property where they are. He gets very suspicious or anxious about the island, and therefore there's a big chunk in the middle of the movie where she has to stop him going too far, otherwise he'll realize that he's actually on the mainland. But beyond that, there's no driving narrative for the film. They underwrite the whole thing. So whereas any normal, if you're going to have a two-hander in one place, whether it's something like A Sleuth or My Dinner with Andre or whatever, these movies are talkative. They are talky. With Nell and I is another, talk. It's got to be about the dialogue. And in this movie, it's not about any of that, really. Her dialogue is incredibly repetitive. And his dialogue, I mean, Spader...
she's nonstop crazy and he's nonstop snark.
Yeah, but he's not even...
exactly. He's not even pulling full Spader.
No, he's not. He feels like he was like, well, I'm going to take this film because it's in Ireland. I get to have sex with this French woman, and that sounds fine to me. That to me. Now, believe it or not, this movie cost $5.5 million. So I can only assume that a chunk of that change was to get Spader. Because literally they just wound up at a shack on an Irish hillside and went, this'll do. There's not, it's not like there's any special effects or anything like that. So, okay, maybe they went, we'll give you $1 million, you get to bone some French bird and you get a holiday in Ireland. And he went, all right, fine.
I got to read something real quick here. I'm looking at one of the user reviews on IMDb. This guy gives it a 7, just for the record.
No, I know. I've got that up as well because I was going to read some later.
Yeah. I just got to read this one line where they say, that Anne, what's her name, Brochet, whatever, gives a great performance and has great chemistry with James Spader.
Yeah.
No,
not at all. No, and later on he says the sex scenes were great. And Brochet has a fantastic body. We didn't think they were overdone or gratuitous.
They were 100% overdone and gratuitous. Yeah, yes. It was absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Which is
you might be reading a different thing. I'm reading Daryl, who also gives it 7.
Oh no, I'm reading Claudio.
Oh, okay. Well, Daryl says we enjoyed this movie quite a lot. I don't know if Daryl is referring to him and whoever
his brother Daryl and his other brother Daryl,
or whether he's just referring to himself in the plural, which could be quite
the royal we.
We enjoyed this movie quite a lot. And Brochet's character Sarah was a spinster, a psycho, yet quite erotic. James Spader is always good, and he did a great job going from confused to falling in love to fearing for his life. No, he didn't. It was exactly one note, the whole thing. The only bit where Spader livened up was where he did that ridiculous dance in the bathroom wearing her red women's trousers.
Yeah.
That was the only bit where I'm like, oh, that's the Spader I wish I could see throughout the movie.
Yeah, like I wish he had gone completely unhinged on this one. I almost kind of wish that they had gone the other way and had him go overboard to the point where she wanted to get rid of him.
Yeah, what's also funny is then Daryl gets very confused in the middle of his 7-star review, and he says, there were a couple of strange problems that ruined things for us a little. There he is again, referring to himself in the plural. The story was set in the islands off Ireland. No, it wasn't. That's the entire point. It was actually set in Ireland. Anyway, because they were on the mainland. Anyway, yet Anne Brochet did not try and hide her strong French accent. No, you're right, Daryl. She didn't. I don't remember an explanation of her being French. That's because there wasn't one. And her mother appeared as a ghost, and her mother had an English accent. Huh? That's true. Her mother did have an English accent. The English actress Anna Massey. So yeah, I don't know why the accents were all over the place. Also, he's American, and so the Spader being American. I mean, I guess again, if he's over for the war, that would make sense. But he's not wearing literally any military uniform. He doesn't have dog tags. He doesn't have anything. So yeah, that makes no sense at all. However, Daryl then saves his review with the whole bit about the sex scenes being great and not being overdone or gratuitous, when clearly they were.
Right. Man, I almost feel like I need to film a video review for this.
Yes, you do. These are all the reasons why Daryl, see above, is wrong.
God, I'm an asshole.
You've clearly missed the point, Daryl. But yeah, no. I hope Daryl listens to this.
I do too. I want to fucking post a link to this episode like right underneath this. Listen to this, Daryl.
Yeah, just send it directly to him. I remember when IMDb used to have chat rooms, so you could have done. But although Daryl did write this review, oh my goodness, he wrote this review on Christmas Day, 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so Daryl and himself, because I'm assuming there's only one of him, watched this movie 20 years ago.
It's Daryl and the ghost of his mother.
Right. Who also has an English accent, which confuses Daryl Noah.
I have this French accent, but for some reason my mom has an English accent. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it kind of ruined it for us a little bit.
What I like now is that I can picture Daryl and the imaginary ghost of his wife or mother sat watching this on Christmas Day in 1999, probably with a roaring fire burning, and then at the end of it being like, I should probably, go onto my computer and write a review for this movie.
And his mom's just sitting there like, oh yes, you should, you totally.
You should point out that it's quite erotic.
But not gratuitous.
There's nothing gratuitous about the eroticism. Go on, Daryl, go write it. Daryl has to start his dial-up computer just to go onto IMDb to fucking.
Yeah, he wrote this with a 56K connection.
Yeah, on Christmas Day in 1999, 20 years ago.
That's a good fucking 40 minutes of wasted time,
right?
That he could have spent trying to get pictures of boobs on AOL.
Well, no, but he did just have watched Driftwood. So if he wanted to see things that he believed were a fantastic body, then he only had to go back to Driftwood. I just like the idea that Daryl on Christmas Day. There's so much about this review now that I've found at IMDb that is both beautiful and intriguing. And
yeah, I kind of just want the rest of this episode to just be about this review,
about us reviewing Daryl and what he was doing 20 years ago. In fact, on Christmas Day of this year, I think I'm going to put on Facebook. This marks the 20th anniversary of the time that Daryl sat and watched Driftwood. How do I know? Because he wrote it on IMDb.
He wrote a review.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things ever. There's quite a few reviews from 1999. Someone weirdly in 2011 called this Misery, Fatal Attraction, and Lady Chatterley's Lover Reloaded. That makes it sound like a Matrix sequel. It's not.
It's not. And it's not. I mean, honestly, it's got hints of misery in there, but like I said, the main character, the woman is too stupid to actually tie him to the bed.
Well, the big problem with the film is that while it explores her madness, it doesn't explore it in a, engaging enough way. And it doesn't allow Spader to then explore his story. If any one of us woke up with amnesia in a strange place, blah, 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 we'd be doing, and I know he goes, let me fix the radio, and then he says, let me get on a boat, and then he says, let me do this, let me do that. I know he says that, but at no point is there any real attempt by him to kind of figure out who he's from, or who he is, or where he's from. And all he keeps wanting to do is walk the island, but he doesn't want to walk the island because he doesn't, there's no indication that he thinks that she's lying. He just wants to walk the island to make sure for himself that there's nothing else on the island. But he does believe her that they're on an island. So if there was something in the story that hinted that he didn't believe her during the film, I mean, it's clear towards the end he doesn't believe her, but
you mean that towards the end when he magically has a boat?
Yeah, where he magically builds a raft out of driftwood. Irony of ironies. The other hilarious thing is this was originally set in Scotland, not Ireland. The book was written about Scotland. When it was changed to Ireland, they didn't bother changing the fact that she's a wood carver and sculptor, which is hilarious because Ireland famously doesn't have many trees. And even in the film, James Spader goes, wait, there aren't any trees here. So even James Spader in the movie points out the inconsistency with the movie being moved from Scotland to Ireland, which is kind of wonderful. Well,
it wouldn't have made a lot of sense if she had been a sculptor of peat moss.
No. Or potatoes. My favorite character, my favorite part of the whole thing is the grocery guy. He is my favorite, hands down. He's amazing. He's like an extra out of Father Ted or the brain dead guy out of Hot Fuzz. That's kind of where he's coming from. And the best sequence is where he's trying to take stuff into her sculpting shed or garage or whatever it is, the little other outbuilding that there is there. And he's insisting on moving stuff for her because she couldn't possibly manage it herself, even though the actor is playing it with an outrageous limp and a wheezing cough. So it's the last person on the planet. First of all, if you're a grocery clerk and you come to this property and she's like, could you fuck off, please, repeatedly, you wouldn't hang around. I mean, unless the only thing I could think of is that there was some indication that maybe they had something in the past.
Well, here's a theory I have that they never really touch upon, but here's the theory I have, is that he keeps hoping that she's not going to get money because in the past, when she didn't have money, she'd fuck him.
I think, yes, because there was something where she was getting letters from someone, again, never explained. Then the letters dry up, again, never explained. He makes mention of both these things. He also says, did you get what we've both been looking forward to, or something like that, and kind of grins with his gravestone teeth and his mad eyes. And then later on, he's at the house watching her have sex with James Spader, which is a whole other thing because there's a storm going on outside. Was he sat at home and going, there's a storm going on, I'm going to go and see if I can get laid? I'm going to walk 5 miles in a storm to go see if this insane French broad might, give me a hand job or something. Instead, he then finds her knobbing Spader and spends a long time looking through the window, which seemed like a scene put in there just to have
like a voyeur scene.
Yeah, well, we're going to have another sex scene. That's written into Spader's contract. But can we make it slightly creepy by having the weird grocery guy look in to To which Spader probably went, "Oh, of course, yes,
Yeah,
of course, we have to have
that. Sounds fucking great.
That sounds great. Please put that on camera for me. I need it for my collection.
I need that for my reel.
Yeah.
There is another great moment too, going back to him bringing the groceries in, where she very explicitly keeps telling people to not look at her art.
Right.
You know, so what's the first thing he fucking does after he puts everything down? He pulls the fucking tarp off of her sculpture and then immediately starts staring at its dick.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much weird, obviously there's sexual undertones. James Spader's in the film, and a French actress. So, like, you put those two together, immediately sexual undertones. But in general, the way that it plays up this like weird, drooling, limping, wheezing local, coupled with sexual undertones, coupled with a weird one-eyed sculpture and a ghost. The way that it kind of crams all this stuff in and yet still isn't interesting is sort of a feat into itself.
Yeah, like this is one of those movies that definitely on paper seems like there's a lot of potential to be interesting and fun and could have been like a really good thriller.
Yeah.
But the execution, boy.
Oh, it's awful, yeah.
It's just fucking awful.
There's a great review on Letterboxd from a reviewer called Holly Horror, who clearly is something of a James Spader fan, because I've looked. There's a lot of lists featuring James Spader on Letterboxd, and she has made one herself, and also a fellow listener to the diner, Andy Lunn, who always talks about James Spader and Sleazy Spader Springtime and always looks forward to it, because him and his wife some years ago did their own Sleaze of Spader series, just watching it at home, I think. I don't think they recorded anything about it. So he's on Letterboxd reviewing it as well. In fact, he sent us an email. Let's bring up his email.
Please.
Andy Lunn says, and we'll do this by way of leading into some Letterboxd reviews. Hi, John. I can't believe that the 4th year of Sleazy Spader Springtime is already at an end. It's been pretty special, as always. I must say, I was very pleased to hear that there's enough movies to keep going for another 4 years at least. When it does finally end, spring just won't be the same or as moist without it. So, following last week's top-tier feature, Wolf, I was over the moon to discover that you had finally obtained a copy of the bizarre beast that is Driftwood. Let's not beat around the bush. It's shit. And yet, I had an amazingly good time with it. It's now a whole 5 years since my wife and I had our own Sleaze of Spader season, during which we watched Driftwood, and so my memory of it is a little hazy, but I recall vividly how appalling his co-star was, how the script was terrible, and yet he soldiered on. I also remember laughing throughout because it was unintentionally hilarious. Here's my original review from Letterboxd. I don't think that I've ever seen a movie as unintentionally hilarious as this one. It's basically Misery, but without the snow and the novels. However, unlike Misery, it's not really any good. But it is a hilariously good time, and this is in major part due to the presence of James Spader. No matter how silly it gets, how awful the lead actress's performance is, or how ridiculous various scenes are, Spader gives his all, and somehow, despite it all, keeps a straight face. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and my sides were aching from laughing. The only thing I disagree with Andy there is that Spader gives it his all, having seen him in the likes of Wolf or even Mannequin. He's more animated and giving it his all than he is in this movie. Andy wraps up his email saying, anyhow, I do hope you got something out of Driftwood. Yes, we did. We got Daryl's review. He says, even if it was just disbelief. All the best, and keep trying to snag that interview with the King of Sleaze. Yeah, well, I do keep emailing Spader's representative to see if we can get him on the show. Who knows? Fantastic. One day it might happen. I got Peter Weller 5 years after I did the Woods and Weller series, so who knows? Maybe that will happen. But to pair that with Holly Horror, her and Andy are the only two people to have given this anything over 2 stars on Letterboxd. Holly says, James Spader plays a piece of driftwood that I wish would wash up on my shore. Anne Brochet portrays a woman who would do whatever any other red-blooded woman would do if James Spader washed up on shore, on their side of a fairly isolated island. And so that's the two positive reviews we have of Driftwood. That and, of course, Daryl's. I'm just looking on... There is a 10 out of 10 review on IMDb from Blind Biz. This is the Blind Biz. So this person could be blind.
That explains a lot.
The review says, my favorite movie of all time. I'm not kidding. A woman's movie from our POV. Even though the only woman in it is certifiably insane. And the other one is a ghost. Anyway, her review says, Driftwood is an outstanding movie focusing on a woman's point of view about men, sex, and having a fantasy man as a captive in every sense of the word. The acting is superb. James Spader is very believable as an injured sailor rescued by a lonely artist. At no point, by the way, does it ever say that he's a sailor. Anyway, rescued by a lonely artist who, unfortunately, is quite mad. Women will appreciate how the camera focuses on the beauty of a man's body and sexual pleasures from a woman's perspective. And then in parentheses, refreshing, exclamation point. The actress playing Sarah in inverted commas. No, she was actually playing a character called Sarah. That doesn't need to be in quotation marks. Is absolutely wonderful in a difficult, demanding character study of a woman tormented by the ghosts of her past who seeks only to find love, no matter what it takes. The film is sure to become an art film favorite. Again, art film for some reason is in quotation marks. I mean, I know that it's not an art film, but does this reviewer is my question. Especially among women who have always dreamed of having a beautiful lover on a remote island, albeit with a different outcome. Enjoy. Other viewpoints are available, especially if you're blind or mad. Because anyone who watched this thinking it was pro-woman or pro-woman's fantasy clearly misunderstood the film.
Yeah. Good Lord.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, as I said, my favorite character is the wheezing, hobbling grocery store clerk who won't take no for an answer. And in the only exciting thing to happen in the whole film, she takes an axe to him and kills him. And I was like, finally, this movie's turning around. And then I looked at the time, and it only had 8 minutes left. I'm like, what? You're going to murder someone 8 minutes before the end? Oh, right, this movie is not going to wrap anything up, is it?
Nope.
The police show up. They find a small sculpture covered in blood. They poke at a body. Down comes the dead greengrocer, and we cut to Spader washing up on another island. So absolutely nothing is resolved, wrapped up, or explained. And that's really it. There's so little to talk about this film. I feel like I'm disappointing Andy Lunn. But Andy, I have to say that while I understand why it could be found to be hilarious, I have to, the movie reviewer in me just wishes that with this setup and even with this cast that they had just done something slightly more, and it wouldn't have taken more than 3 or 4 pages of extra dialogue to have made this more interesting. I think Moe's fallen asleep just while I'm reading reviews of the movie.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I was sitting here thinking back to the movie because I watched it this morning, and I've somehow managed to go a little comatose.
Nice. Good. Oh, there is another 10-star review from Hawker 2. Again, this is from April 1999, so slightly less sad than reviewing it on Christmas Day. But they say more a 3-act play than a feature film. I have to say, if I went to the theater and this was the play, I would be even more disappointed, considering the price of theater tickets. Anyway, he says, the story is concise and honest. There isn't a story. Once we realize Sarah is lying about the seclusion of her island and see a few too many appearances of her dead mother, it becomes apparent where the story is heading. Sarah's loneliness and desire to keep the man, in inverted commas. People don't know how to use inverted commas. Anyway, with her, makes her a sympathetic villain by the end. It's not the most original premise, but it delivers the goods with a refreshing truthfulness and simplicity. Okay. All right. Enough reading other people's reviews. Let's go over then to the Sleazatorium. I presume you've listened to a previous episode of Sleazy Spader Springtime and you know about the Sleazatorium. Do you want me to go first so you can have a think, or have you already...
Nope, I have an idea.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, I think he takes her half-finished statue, but...
Oh, the one with the butt and the penis.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, but I think he also takes the tarp that was over top of it, and once it's in the Sleazatorium,
right,
the only way you're allowed to see it is if you pretend to be a hunchback, limping, heavy breathing Irishman.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe he took the Irishman's coat and forces people to wear it.
Right.
And do their best limp across the...
Exactly.
Right.
And they're only allowed to look at it as long as they get disturbed by the eye and stare way too long at the penis.
I think that he's had that statue probably painted all except for the penis.
Of course.
That when you pull off the tarp, your eye immediately is drawn to the penis. Like that's, right. I mean, that's what you're looking at. The rest of it is just sort of painted a kind of generic gray or brown or something. So you're not going to look quite at it. Just looking at the penis. It's funny you picked that because I also picked a statue. I thought that he would have taken the statue that was flecked with blood at the end, the one that the police detective gingerly fingers and then like rubs to see if it's blood. But as you've taken a statue, I think that Spader takes... I think he takes one of the boys from the side of his raft that while sailing to the other island, he quickly had sex with.
Well, that's how he crashed.
Right.
It's a known fact. That's how he crashed the second time.
Yeah.
Because he
was having sex with a flotation device.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That buoy was way too attractive, so he had to drill a hole into it so that he could stick his penis in there.
Yes.
It makes total sense. And then it filled up with water, which of course made the sexual act much better.
Yeah.
And then he washed up on shore where he inevitably had sex with those two women. And
definitely. He's probably still there today having sex with us.
Made them fight to the death over him.
Yes.
Because his penis is that magical.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie could just be called James Spader's Magical Penis.
Exactly.
And there could just be sequels where he keeps getting trapped on islands by women who fall madly in love with him and want his penis. He keeps escaping those islands only to make it to another island where there are now 3 women. And each sequel, there becomes increasingly more women. So that when you get to like Driftwood 9, he's finally met his match.
Well, that's because in Driftwood 9, there's 8 women and a man.
Right.
Probably played by like fucking like Brian Thompson or
Powers
Booth.
You know what we've forgotten. You know what he had. Forget all this. You know what he actually took to the Sleazatorium.
I need to know.
He took the goat.
He took the goat.
That's right. He took to the Sleazatorium. What was the goat's name? Sam.
Something like that.
Yeah.
He only had 2 sexy scenes, 2 sexy partners in this movie.
Right.
You know.
And what was the goat?
Yeah, one who had, perky little boobs.
Right.
and the other one who had a nice rack.
Yeah, nice droopy teats.
And we know that was the fucking goat.
Can we talk about Spader's excitement at getting the milk to work? Just that scene alone was a joy for me. I did quite enjoy that. Because she was like, no, squeeze the top and then like...
Yeah, we enjoyed that too.
Flick the bottom and then it started coming out. And he was like, oh, look at this. Like he got really happy about the milky teat. So yeah, I think he took the goat. In fact, I'm surprised that at the end of Driftwood, when he's trying to escape on the raft, he's not doing so with the coat, with the goat under his arm. Because that would be more Spader, and it would also add to just the sheer insanity of this film if the whole point was Spader tries to escape the island and kidnaps the goat.
Oh my god! Yeah, the goat's actually his life partner now.
Yeah, the goat's the best thing in the film outside of the greengrocer.
It's true.
In fact, actually, I think the goat, the greengrocer, and Spader are probably living on an island with 9 women right now. That's probably what's happening. Yep. But this is one of those films where you almost wish that they'd sequelized it, and you almost wish that, like the Fast and Furious franchise, by about number 5, it got really good. like they do number 3, Tokyo Driftwood. Come on, that was good. Come on.
That was like one of those joke grenades. It took me a second to for it to fully catch in my brain.
Yeah, it would be 2 Drift, 2 Wood would be the second one. 3 is Tokyo Driftwood. 4 is just Wood. It just goes on from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about all I've got to say about Driftwood.
I can't wait for the spin-off series that's coming out later this year, just called Goat and Greengrocer.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
You could spin off. I mean, what's weird is the movie answers so few things and shows you so few things that actually you could extrapolate and go off in quite a few directions.
Mm-hmm.
The person flying the kite, what's their story?
Right.
Maybe the 4th one is a prequel that explains how she made the kite, or something. The 5th one, it takes place on the island with the 2 women and their story until they meet Spader, and then the 6th one, it ties up from the end of Driftwood 1 to the end of Driftwood 5, because it's the story of the 2 women. And so at the end of Driftwood 5, Spader winds up on their island, and then Driftwood 6 goes forward with a continuity.
I love it.
That's how it works. And I would happily write all those movies if Spader would reprise his role, even though now he's old, fat, and bald. I do like to believe, though, that maybe the Blacklist is his character from Driftwood, who's got his memory back and realizes that actually he's an international sleazy criminal with a penchant for fancy hats.
Of course. Penchant.
A penchant for flouncy hats. Because that's the Blacklist. The Blacklist is him just flouncing around in scarves and hats, drinking tiny coffees and pursing his lips at every opportunity. Wow. Come on, Mo, help me out. Say something, dude.
What do you want me to say, man? Let's put it this way. Okay, I'm glad that I watched the movie because it gave me an excuse to come on the show and talk with you. On the other hand, I'm really annoyed that I woke up early to watch this movie because now I'm fucking tired as balls. And half of that is because I watched this movie.
Was it like, I mean, I only gave it, I think, 1.5 stars on Letterboxd.
I'm not even sure I'd give it that much. I'd probably just give it a 1.
Is it that bad?
I think it is. Like, honestly, like, look.
It is that bad, isn't it?
That bad. It's legitimately that bad. And the only reason why it gets a 1 is because of the goat's teats. I mean, honestly.
Right.
They were fantastic.
I said my review was, I don't even know what to say about this empty nothing of a movie. So much could have happened that didn't. Spader got to be naked a lot, and that, wait, is this set in the 90s or is Ireland perpetually in the 30s vibe was amusingly weird enough to be slightly interesting, but ultimately it sets up way more mysteries than it answers. Man of the match, though, has to go to the truly ridiculous, overacting, gravestone teeth delivery man. What were they thinking?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they were thinking the fucking movie needed something.
And then Benny who was the only other recent reviewer other than me on Letterboxd, said the last line of James Spader's character in this is "Help me," which is exactly what I thought for the entire length of this movie. Yeah, that's it. So we tried to squeeze an hour out of Driftwood, and we got to 51 minutes. And if you think that 20 minutes of that is me just reading out reviews from the internet,
it is. Yeah.
Moe and I could not find more than 30 minutes of stuff to talk about this film with.
Yeah, and you know, like honestly, if we had gone off on a tangent and talked about other things, we could have gotten an hour out of this pretty easily. But yeah, this movie doesn't have an hour. It really doesn't.
So with the 10 minutes left then, Moe, do you have, off the top of your head, any personal James Spader favorites? It doesn't matter if we've covered them already or if we haven't covered them yet, but are you a Spader fan? And if so, what films?
Well, you know, I think it's not, I mean, it's going to be a pretty obvious choice for me that one of my biggest faves for Spader is the classic Tough Turf. Mm-hmm. Trying to think of what else he's done.
Which is coming out on Blu-ray from Kino Lorber soon.
That's pretty fucking great. I mean, that's pretty fucking great.
No Spader commentary, unfortunately.
That's a shame. And there's like the ones we've talked about. I know we've talked about like I believe Less Than Zero. We talked about.
Well, we talked about that on the Andrew McCarthy episode.
Right. But you know, I love that. I'm a big Mannequin fan for what it is. I
think that's where I'm thinking that you've been on a Spader podcast. I think it's because we did the Andrew McCarthy New Year one.
True. But yeah, I mean, you know.
Oh no, you did Speaking of Sex last year.
You know, it's funny. I just got to there on the IMDb, and I'm like, that's the one we did.
Yeah, you and D. Shaw from the Three Black Geeks.
And I honestly don't even. Here's how bad it is sometimes. Like generally, like I'm really bad at remembering movies. Like because I only generally tend to watch movies once anyway.
Yeah.
But so I'm really bad at remembering like details. But I remember the impression that it left me. I don't remember a fucking thing about that movie.
No, I mean I remember being pissed that it was, considering the cast, it was no good.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that of all the Spader movies that I've watched, the one that has angered me the most is Speaking of Sex, and the one that's probably bored me the most is this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, okay, I remember now. That's the one where there's like a courtroom battle, like he's getting divorced or something like that.
It's not a courtroom, it's a mediation room. Yeah. And Bill Murray's in it, and Lara Flynn Boyle, and
right. And it should have been so much better than it was. Yeah, okay, yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, fuck that movie.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's the only other one you've been on. And you covered Mannequin and Less Than Zero on the Andrew McCarthy episode.
Right.
Which, yeah, I don't know. Like, am I going to make that part of Sleazy Spader Springtime? Am I going to have to redo those movies? Or do I just link Sleazy Spader Springtime to Andrew McCarthy episode as like further listening?
That's what I would do.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. I would just link it. Why do those movies again if you've already done them?
Because we do talk about Spader quite extensively when we're covering those two films.
Right,
now we also happen to cover the 2 Weekend at Bernie movies as well, which he's not in, unfortunately, because I think that would have been better.
Could you imagine that instead of, I can't remember the dark-haired guy's name, but could you imagine if it had been Andrew McCarthy and fucking Spader?
It would have been amazing.
That would have been fucking amazing.
If Spader kept trying to use Bernie's corpse as some sort of sex aid,
right?
That would have been incredible.
Exactly. Like he kept on trying to use fucking Bernie's influence to get himself laid.
Yeah.
And of course it would work like 15 times.
Of course. Yeah. Well, that would be the movie.
Yeah.
That's Weekend at Bernie's 3.
Oh my God.
Where they use Bernie's corpse as a contraceptive or something.
Yeah. Weekend at Bernie's 3. Good corpse is hard to find.
Yeah, right. Yes. Has rigor mortis set in, or are you just pleased to see me?
Weekend at Bernie's 3, rigor mortis.
Yeah. Weekend at Bernie's 3, still stiff.
Still stiff.
Starring James Spader and Andrew McCarthy. That would be amazing.
Man, I'd watch that in a second.
Because McCarthy's worked with him recently on The Blacklist. McCarthy directed a few of the Blacklist episodes.
That's awesome.
So you could get Andrew McCarthy and James Spader together for a Weekend at Bernie's 3. I don't know why not. And it's sort of like, that's where I'm at with the whole pop culture's gone mad thing. Like, we're all at a point where, Star Wars, Avatar, Indiana Jones, Marvel movies, DC movies, all this stuff, like pop culture's just gone insane, and they're just trying to do sequels and reboots. I mean, now we've got Chris Rock rebooting the Saw franchise. Like, no one asked for that.
That's really fucking weird to me.
So I'm like, come on, let's get Spader and McCarthy to do a Weekend at Bernie's 3. We've got Bill and Ted 3 coming out, so it's a perfect way to add to that. And then you have a Police Academy 8 with the Goots comes back. Then you have a crossover where Weekend at Bernie's Police Academy has a crossover where somehow Bernie's reanimated corpse helps the Police Academy to solve a crime.
Yeah, it's funny with all these these
writes
reboots and all
itself,
this.
Mo.
It does. It absolutely does. But it's funny, you'd almost think with all these reboots and sequels and this crazy pop culture thing that we're going through, you'd think that we were trying to distract ourselves from something.
Yeah, right.
I wonder what could possibly be going on that we'd want to distract ourselves from.
I know. I don't understand. I don't understand at all. Although I will say this. It's interesting because I talked about this before, but I watched a turkey shoot recently and was like, I wonder why they don't make any more exploitation films like after Nam and everything, when the shit hit the fan and the country was changing. They started to make a whole ton of exploitation movies. Until someone pointed out that we're basically living in an exploitation movie, and that anything that you came up with now would not be as crazy as what's going on. So clearly, what we've done is go the other way and just decided to embed ourselves.
I gotta tell you, what would be the perfect fucking idea right now? What show to bring back? Bring back the fucking West Wing.
Yeah.
How much would you love to see a fucking West Wing series in the Trump White House?
Well, except that it would be terrifying and upsetting.
It would be exactly. It would be the human centipede of fucking Andrew Sorkin projects. I'd watch that.
I quite like the idea of some. No, Mo, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The only way to do a exploitation film about these days is if you went like Human Centipede with it. So in other words, you would have a scene where Trump, or the Trump-like president, invited some sports team round to the White House where he fed them all fast food. You know how he keeps doing this thing where he keeps getting like McDonald's and fucking KFC and all this shit, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm just a regular dude." Yeah, fuck off. You're just a fat cunt. Anyway, it brings in the sports teams, feeds them all.
Their coaches.
Yeah, they're coaches. He feeds them all poisoned burgers. They then all wake up as a giant human centipede that snakes throughout the White House.
Oh my God, yes!
and that's not the only thing. Like he's got like reanimated corpses in the basement. He's got like a torture chamber in his bedroom. Like all the stuff from all the sick horror movies. He's got like a Faces of Death style, like endless loop on the screening room. Like the White House has been turned into like a fun house of horror.
Exactly.
And every single room in the White House is filled with just the most depraved, insane shit you could possibly have. And
right. You could get the Crypt Keeper to play Kellyanne Conway.
Yeah, exactly. Right. There was a SNL sketch the other night where the guy was talking about he was talking to like I forget what who's the guy who looks like a turtle?
Pete Davidson?
No. In the who's a politician? I forget all the names.
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell. He was talking to Mitch McConnell. He was talking to the little guy who looks like Yoda with the ears and the bald head and who's another slimy fuck.
Jeff Sessions?
Jeff Sessions, that's it.
Wow.
So he was talking.
I'm on point today.
You're on point today. So he was talking to them, and he was like, the joke was, what would it take for you to not support Trump? And the joke basically was that Trump could basically do anything and they would still support him. So that would have to be the crux of this satire. It would have to be how far and how depraved and how disgusting and how violent and horrific would the president have to get for his inner circle to, finally, like you could have Trump having sex with their wives, feeding their children to his dog, like you could really go, like, what would it take? Like you could have every single horrific moment could be a breaking point question.
Right. Somebody get Chris Rock on the phone.
But knowing full well that if they go against him, if they go, okay, we can't stand for this anymore, they're dead, because this president has like insane torture chambers and everything else. So they know that the moment they go against him. So that would be the ultimate thing. Like, in order, like maybe he makes Mitch McConnell thing where it's like, I will save your wife and children if I'm allowed to, like, I don't know, slowly slice bits of your skin off or something. Like, I don't know. Like he just keeps making grotesque and ridiculous. That's probably the only thing you could do. And then you would have to have one of his inner circle, or maybe like you would mix it with Olympus Has Fallen, and you would have it that one of his Secret Service guys finally snaps and has to navigate the hellscape of the interior of the White House in order to assassinate the president.
Right, and it's almost like that movie. Like it could be like that movie, The Collector.
Right, which someone weirdly said was like this movie, Driftwood. But
no.
Yeah.
I love it. I love this idea.
Yeah.
Get Chris Rock on the phone. We need to make this.
Yeah. All right. Well, that padded it out to an hour. I think we've got. I mean, that writes itself, and then we pair that with Weekend at Bernie's 3. Bernie is the only person to survive, even though he's already dead, and Spader shows up and has sex with his corpse.
Well, remember in Weekend at Bernie's 2, he was possessed by some voodoo guys. So anytime there's music playing, he walks on his own. So
see, I still think that's hilarious.
I think it's fucking hilarious too.
It's my favorite bit out of any of the Weekend at Bernie films. It's so well done.
Oh, my God.
All right, dude. Well, look, thanks ever so much for being on this fourth and final episode of Sleazy Spader Springtime of 2019. We will be back this time next year with more Sleazy Spader. But just keep yourself moist and ready for next year. And then normal After Movie Diner service will resume next week. Thanks ever so much for being on the show, Mo. It means a ton that you sat through Driftwood for me.
Yeah, next time you owe me a good movie.
Dude, I will never ever make you watch a good movie. That will never be something.
I know. I've noticed the trend.
The last time I allowed you to watch a good movie was, I think, probably the Jim Jarmusch episode.
Yeah, and I remember like we had nothing to say because it's so much harder to talk about good shit than it is to talk about bad shit.
Right, exactly. Well, we've come up with a sweet spot. The sweet spot is, it can't be so bad that you just actively fucking hate it.
Right.
And it can't be...
And that's, which is funny, because that's like half of the episodes of No Budget Nightmares.
Right.
Where we pick something so fucking bad that we're just seething the entire episode.
And it can't be so good that you just have nothing to say but praise for it.
Right.
It has to either be good but compromised. So in other words, good but with some things where you're like, if only they'd done this. Or... bad, but they clearly shot for something. Like they were shooting for the moon and they overshot it and they didn't hit. But like, it's a bad film, but there's something about it worth discussing. That's kind of the sweet spot for the After Movie Diner, we've decided.
Like Disorderlies.
Right, like Disorderlies.
I don't know.
Which is a film we've never covered on the After Movie Diner. But still, maybe one day we will, Mo. And on that day, we won't have you guest, because that would be something you'd enjoy.
It's true. I would enjoy that.
But no, seriously, dude, this has been fun. And let's do it again sometime.
Indeed.
And so to end this episode, we're going to play Moe 75, MO 75, from the album of the same name, a 3-volume album which we wrote about on aftermoviediner.com from the band The Big Heist. It's absolutely awesome. Check it out on Spotify. The link will be in the show notes, but it is Moe 75, that's MO 75. By The Big Heist, Volume 1, 2, and 3. Look for it on Spotify and take a listen. It's awesome. Here is the title track.
This rock won't move, it'll stay to prove that Moe 75 was here one day with paint that sprayed to mark this glorious time. She's so sweet, we can feel the heat and we can't escape the sweat. Windows down, cruise through town, everything is fresh and getting ready and going steady and go find it, even though he said he wanna be found. We know everybody's name and everybody's game. We've all changed, but we're still the same. And it goes round and round. This rock won't move, it reminds me of you taking Moe 75. And the dog that barked all alone in the dark, still happy to be alive. Sitting by the pool after school, singing Moe 75. Just one more shot or passing thought is all I need to survive.